Speaking of China, they, like Canada and Mexico, are threatening to retaliate against these new U.S. tariffs if they take effect. Eunice Yoon is in Beijing with the latest. Eunice.
Hey, Carl. Well, the Chinese government response was much more muted. But generally speaking, the reaction here is that China got off much more easily than many had feared. This is a 10% tariff that's on top of existing tariffs. So it's going to affect industries differently. But at the same time, most companies here that we spoke to believe that there wasn't really any need to change their current plans. For example, those who are thinking of moving some production outside still are going to do that. Others who are saying that they're just going to gut it out would continue to gut it out. But for one thing that was really interesting in my conversations with some of the manufacturers is that most of them did feel emboldened to try to push this 10% tariff onto their U.S. partners or onto U.S. consumers with the hope that they could, at the very least, split the cost. One other trend that we heard with our conversations is that a lot of people believed that in any case, the Chinese government would allow for the yuan to weaken further, as the government here did during President Trump's first term. So those are some of the three trends. The government itself had said that it plans to hit the U.S. with corresponding countermeasures and also to bring this case to the WTO. But for the most part, those statements were relatively boilerplate. There will be an impact and a consequence to these tariffs. As you guys well know, the Chinese economy isn't really doing that well. The Taishin PMI actually showed that factory activity was worse than expected for January, so it could hurt. But for the most part, people are feeling that a little bit of a relief, even if there is uncertainty.
Eunice, excellent report. I totally agree with you. I was surprised that they got to 10%. I think that they could get it higher if they don't play ball. There's one part of the economy we're all trying to figure out, which is the end of the de minimis and what it means for Shein and Temu, because these are two companies that have really taken the country by storm. And I think that it could be the most hurt, trying to figure out what happens there.
Yeah, well, we spoke to some of the sellers for Temu and Shein, and they weren't so disheartened because of the fact that a lot of the companies had already been trying to push ahead with one of Temu and Shein's what they called the second model, and that is to push the product to the U.S. and warehouse more. So by doing that, the cost is more on the seller as opposed to on Temu and Shein, so the companies themselves don't really have to take on that much.
Eunice, appreciate that. We'll talk often, I have a feeling. Eunice Yoon in Beijing.